I mean, I kind of look at the ridiculous idea that you're going to tax people's investments on unrealized gains, right? Like you own a stock, it goes up, even though you haven't sold it yet, she's going to tax you on it. I mean, it's insane and probably unconstitutional. And I don't think that would actually, let's hope, get through. But the idea that she's even talking about this stuff, it gives you a lot of insight, a window into who she is, what she believes, how she thinks she can wave a magic wand and just fix everything with, everything from price controls to $25,000 handouts for new home buyers in hopes that, this is going to reduce the housing prices that have grown so extraordinarily high. And it's all wrong. I mean, that's what just amazes me. It's all so darn wrong.
Yeah, but it's you just shake your head. And I mean, the tax on unrealized gains, a lot of people have been focusing on that one. I mean, that is just very dangerous because it just as a practical matter, people don't, value, like what we saw with Mar-a-Lago, right? Valuation, that's a very nebulous thing. To one person, it's worth 14 million, to another person, it's worth 500 million, right? So valuation is always ambiguous. People don't have liquidity. They can't, so some sort of theoretical appreciation in an asset, and now you have to cough up, a huge percentage of cash. So it's just like completely impractical. The VC community is, if you hear from them, they're particularly affected, right? Because you have these startups, who the heck knows what they're worth, or they could go,
they
9 out of 10 of them end up
right. Like, you can't value it until it actually sells. So until you sell the stock, you don't really know what it's worth. Until you sell your home, you don't really know what it's worth. It's very obvious and yet frightening that this is the path that she's going down. But look, I mean, she's not the only one. You think about Elizabeth Warren, and I want to share with you a clip of Elizabeth Warren with Joe Kernan today. We can sort of jump in because it's rather lengthy, but wow, I mean, like, he let her have it. So I know Joe. I worked with him at CNBC. He's for sure a fiscal conservative, like a very, very strong fiscal conservative. And you get this liberal nutty professor on there talking about how it's all the company's fault that prices are so high. It's like, lady, you're the one who had the Inflation Reduction Act. You're the one who stimulated the economy to the tune of $1.8 billion. You're the one that just kept giving out more and more stuff. And you think that that's the answer to everything. It's really rather remarkable. Anyway, let's go to this because Joe and Elizabeth Warren really kind of got into it, and we can talk about it some more here.
I can paint you a picture of how that would work and how it's worked in the past, where we've tried to artificially hold prices down. Competition doesn't come in. People don't, like, if beef is too high, people don't move the chicken. The competitors don't come in to undercut where the beef prices are. Nothing works when you try to artificially control prices. It's just a supply and demand issue. It's a flawed idea.
So did you have a question here?
Yes. Why would you propose a flawed idea when the real problem...
So let me ask.
By the way, the producers are like, no, he didn't. I can see the control room now. They're like, we're never going to get her back as a guest. He didn't really say that. But why would you propose a flawed idea? Here's her explanation.
I want to help the middle class. If you really sincerely want to help people having trouble at the grocery store, it's not price gouging that's the issue. And if you look at it seriously and really want to help them, then let's do something about it together. Fine.
I understand if you want to do a lecture about this, but let's just start with, where have you been for the last 30 years as 36 states have price gouging laws, and they have used them effectively. States like Texas and Florida, they've used price gouging laws. Price gouging laws are not price control.
But don't you think it's important, Rob, to understand the distinction here between what is being alleged and actual price gouging? So she thinks there's price gouging because why else would you be paying 57% more for eggs? But in actuality, when you go and you look and you analyze these numbers, as you and I have, the profit margins have collapsed effectively for a lot of these companies, and consequently, They're not price gouging. They're just trying desperately to pass along some cost to consumers. And in doing so are having to absorb a lot more of the pain themselves.
Yeah, they're picking on, it's funny that they're picking on a sector where there's just really weak evidence to suggest that there's been margin expansion, or, we looked at it and there hasn't been. So it's a very competitive sector, and, it's sort of strange, but this is strategic on her part. And I think, Elizabeth Warren is one of the more intelligent leading Democrats out there. And she must realize this, whereas maybe some of the others actually think price gouging is the problem. But it's an opportunity to, the public. Look, inflation is a complicated subject, and there's a lot of competing ideas about what you can't know the causes of it precisely. So you throw in this alternative theory that it's all, the bad corporate actors, and it's these kind of antitrust abuses, and that explains like half of it. And that's just not plausible. It's like maybe, 0.1% of the inflation, but they just want to deflect attention to,
Sure.
This convenient theory.
Well, Kernan points this out, so it's kind of funny to watch. We should take a peek.
Price gouging laws are to say, sometimes markets go off the rails. And when they do, we need some ways to get them back on the rails. We need some curbs on that behavior. So, for example, we watched in the pandemic how prices went up for a whole lot of reasons. They went up partly because we had supply chain kinks. We had problems because of the war in Ukraine that cut supplies of certain commodities. And one of the things that happened as a result of that is there were corporations that said, whoa, now that we have inflation, now that prices are up overall, this is a great opportunity for us to raise prices, not just in passing along costs, but to go way, way, way above that. And how do we know that it was way, way above just passing along costs? Look at what happened to their profit margins. If they'd just been passing along costs, profit margins would have stayed about the same. But for some industries, some companies, profit margins shot up. And do you know where they shot up most often? It was in companies or in industries where there was a lot of concentration, a lot of market power, places where the market is not functioning competitively. So you end up with someone, you remember we all talked about egg prices. You end up with something like this giant egg producer, Cal-Maine. And Cal-Maine raises the price of eggs. Their profit margins increase by 718%. That's not just passing along costs.
Senator,
and that is a time
that's sophistry. Your example on Kraft. Your example on Kraft is even worse.
You finished first. In any of the states around the country that already have price gouging laws in place.
Can I tell you why those are fallacious and misleading at best? And your Kraft analogy is even. Why can't I tell you? Please let me tell you. Kraft, you say, was 440% profit increase. The example you used, the prior quarter from the year before, they had a charge of $1.3 billion, an accounting change, which
Whoa, gosh, I didn't mean to. Let's go back. I want to hear
profits. Then they earned what they normally. Let me finish now. They earned.
You didn't let me finish. Look at the data. Come on. We have economic study now after economic study.
This is the way it always goes.
When there is more concentration,
40 million eggs were destroyed because of avian flu.
When there is more concentration in an industry, we have seen much greater increases in
Do you attribute
the
inflation?
Margins.
That's what you think we need to do to solve it?
They're not random. They are not random one-offs. It is part of the problem when you've got companies that are gouging consumers on prices. Consumers need to know they've got somebody on their side.
Senator,
and
listen, we're trying to help. We're trying to actually do.
Where are you in the 36 37 states that currently have price
just
gouging
quickly
laws
on that point, Senator
and have
Warren,
used them quite
this is Kelly here. Can I
effectively.
just
We're never
clarify how
going
this
to
would work?
This is the way you never lose an argument, because no one can ever say anything back to you, Senator.
The state price gouging
frustrating.
laws take.
Anyway, I mean, he was kind of at his wit's end with her. It's a fundamental sort of different view of things, Rob. And bottom line, you know, she's got a political reason for being the way she is.
You know, there's something even worse going on here too, because she's sort of normalizing this idea that there's something wrong with companies charging, you know, what they want to charge for their product, right? So this idea that you're only supposed to pass through costs as they go up, and there's some sort of cap on your margins. And I think that's, you know, there's like an underlying, that's like another factor here that you kind of have to think about when you listen to Elizabeth Warren, because that's not how our economy works. Companies can charge, you know, they can't conspire with one another. There's all kinds of antitrust laws, but they can charge what they think their customers will pay, and they can earn healthy margins. And you know what the solution to that is? You know, another company comes and tries to compete with them. So we've talked a lot about NVIDIA. It has 65% operating margins. It is a very profitable company. It's not a cost plus situation, right? They don't just pass through slightly above their costs. They're making a lot of money because they have a unique and really good product that their customers desperately want, and they're charging whatever they please. And they've created trillions of dollars of value because of that. And that's not wrong. And so if we're in this mentality that, you know, it's gouging to generate profits for excellent products, like it's a really dangerous path to go down. You know, when we look at our holdings in the model portfolio, we're looking for pricing power. We're looking for companies that have, you know, a competitive advantage, a special product, and an ability to earn healthy margins. And that's sort of how value is created in business. So I take even further offense. You know, not only is she being deceptive about, you know, the real causes of inflation, but she's sort of like normalizing this idea that corporate profits are inherently, you know, predatory and they're inherently bad. And that's just not how capitalism works.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't be where we are, right, as a nation, if in fact that's the way it was. I mean, we have the success we have because free market capitalism has been very successful. And granted, you know, look, it's not perfect, this, that, and the other, and we can debate that on the margin, but she's basically trying to throw the whole thing out, as is Kamala Harris, by the way. So it's quite alarming. It's quite disturbing that this is sort of the mentality that they are embracing.